The ACC is going to be full of surprises this year, and it feels more wide open than ever. Well, aside from Miami, who's got arguably the most dominant roster in all of college football, but who could be a sleeper team that could challenge Miami for an ACC championship? Who from last year could take a big step back? These are my picks for the biggest step forward and the biggest step back that these ACC teams will make in 2026. Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lucas Hill, hero of the Southern sports scene. Make sure you all do us a favor. Hit the like, share, and subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell notifications so that you are notified every time we go live, post a new video, or post a new short here on the Southern sports scene. And as always, we want to thank our friends and good partners at Frost Buddy. Going over to frostbuddy.com. Use the promo code SSS15 to get 15% off of your first purchase. That is code SSS15 to get 15% off of your first purchase. Also, we want to thank our friends over at Chike Nutrition. With 20 grams of protein, 1 gram of fat, 1 gram of sugar, you can get every day started with a healthy, hearty cup of coffee so that every day will start off nice and you can get the rest of 2026 and going into college football season, because crazy as it sounds, we've got 5 months left in the year. Let's finish it off strong. Why not start it off every day with a cup of iced hot, or with either hot or iced coffee? And as always, guys, we love to post our videos on in partnership with the Buzzer app. Download the Buzzer app today and take advantage to see if you can become a verified creator. Starting off with the team that I think is going to take the biggest step forward in the ACC. Guys, I really like Cal. And going from a 7-6 team and looking at them in 2026, guys, they have a lot of guys that they brought in from the transfer portal that I really, really like. You have a new head coach in Tosh Lupoy. You brought in Ike Hilliard and Michael Hutchins, who will be your co-defensive coordinator. Jordan Somerville and Ike Hilliard are your co-offensive coordinators. Somerville was with Tampa Bay for the last 2 years as an assistant quarterback coach and a pass game specialist as well. This is his first real coordinator job. So he was with Tosh Lupoy at the same time as him in 2022, whenever he was an offensive analyst. He was contributing to the quarterback development and offensive production as well. He was also a running backs coach and recruiting coordinator at the University of New Mexico. Hilliard, this is his first time ever really being a coordinator. He was, however, the interim co-offensive coordinator for Auburn back in 2022, whenever Brian Harsin initially got fired. But here he is once again. I do believe that it's going to be Somerville that's going to be your play caller at the end of the day. I think Hilliard is going to have a say when it comes to receiver-wise, when it comes to the way that running backs are shifted, the way that the formation is. But I think it's going to be, at the end of the day, it's going to be Somerville's offense to call. You look at some of the guys that they brought in, and it's really impressive. You brought in Ian Strong from Rutgers, who was a consistent playmaker. He was the number one option in 2025. Really showed out this past year, 762 yards off of 52 receptions. The guy averages just over 15 yards a catch throughout his career. He's a very, very physical receiver, despite being 6'3", 211 pounds. And I say despite because Big Ten's got some decent competition. But with a team that wasn't as good in the Big Ten, that has been rather mediocre, he was very productive. And I think him transitioning into an offense with a young quarterback like Jaron Kiawe-Sakpalete, which I'm sure I didn't pronounce that right, he's going to have pass catchers. The loss of Jacob DeJesus is obviously going to play a big role into this. But I still think that you are going to be strong despite that. You brought in Chase Hendricks, who was another phenomenal G6 wide receiver. Was a second-team All-MAC this past year, 1,000 yards receiving, was the number one receiver for this Ohio Bobcat offense. He's a guy that's going to consistently get 4 or 5 catches on any given day. Just probably is going to have that same amount of production this upcoming season. Cal's going to take a big step forward this year. And this is a team that last year down the stretch, their defense lost them a lot of games. They were inconsistent majority of the year from an offensive standpoint. It was Keawe Sakpelete's first full year in the system. He got better as the year went along, but I really do believe that there are moments where they could have won a lot more games if their defense didn't let them down. Losing in double overtime to Virginia Tech didn't help. Giving up 45 to Duke didn't help. Getting blown out by arguably the number one defense in all of college football in San Diego State doesn't help. Getting embarrassed by Stanford. But you do have games where he did have some magical moments. Go look at those 2 games where they beat top 25 teams in Louisville and SMU. You go look at those 2 games. Jaren Keawe Sakpelete, he didn't wow you in that Virginia game, but he was able to bounce back and have a phenomenal game. Threw over 40 passes in 3 of the last 5 games. Should have had a 40-plus in the Hawaii Bowl, but still. It's impressive the fact that he's going to stay at Cal despite the change. I think that this offense is still going to fit what he wants, knowing that he's got a coordinator right beside him that coached up a guy like Baker Mayfield, that they're not necessarily similar in the way that their play style is, but it's still impressive nonetheless, knowing that you get a young quarterback and you get a guy that's already been with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFC and Baker Mayfield, knowing that their game is kind of similar, drop back passers. Sagpelete, I'm intrigued to see if he's going to run a little bit more. The interceptions obviously have to come down. But again, this is going to be a very productive quarterback at the end of the day. He's going to have some big moments in 2026. And when you look at the schedule too, well, before we get to the schedule, I want to talk about the rest of what they brought through the portal. You got in Adam Muhammad, who popped off in the second half of the year for Washington. He was a guy that I think is bound for a breakout year. And I think he would have been the number 1 back at Washington. Instead, decided to go out, stay on the West Coast, decide to head out to Cal, which I think is going to pay off in the long run. I think from the offensive or from the defensive side of the ball, you have a lot of veteran guys, some former SEC guys. Emmanuel Okoye from Tennessee is a phenomenal edge rusher, 6'5", 228, has not yet gotten any chances, is from Nigeria. Man, he is a phenomenal football player. And he's a guy that started off at tight end, made the move to defensive end during the spring in 2024. I think he's got a lot of talent on that side of the ball. I would expect him to compete for a starting job at the end of the day. You have some other guys that are going to get some playing time when it's all said and done. Solomon Williams is going to be your number 1 guy off the edge. He's a guy that's going to either play stand up or he's going to put his hand in the dirt. Top 20 edge rusher coming out of high school. Top 50 player off the edge in the transfer portal. There's a reason why he made it at Texas A&M. It's because of what he brings to the table. It's because of how dominant he was throughout the season, or dominant he is in high school. But depth obviously plays into a factor, and just didn't get him on the field much in College Station. So hopefully he gets some more playing time this year. I really do believe that this guy is going to do some really good things. And then you look at the rest of the season for them. That opening game against UCLA is going to play a big role into how this season goes. If they stay in Berkeley and if they get a win there, You're at Syracuse, at Wagner. You should be 3-0 going to Clemson, or with Clemson coming to town. I think Clemson takes a step back this year, especially on the defensive side of the ball. If you can attack that secondary, I think you have a really good shot of getting to the heart of ACC play. When you get Virginia Tech, you get Wake Forest, at SMU, at North Carolina State, at Virginia, all teams that I'm expecting to take a step forward again this year, and teams that I think are going to be really good this year. I think this is a Cal team that can contend for a 9-win season at the end of the year, possibly a 10-win season come the bowl game. I can see them going on the road, going to games like Virginia, North Carolina State, potentially pulling off an upset. We'll see what happens. I realistically, if they played their cards right, this is a Cal team that could be 5-0 getting to Virginia Tech at home. So I'll have my game-by-game predictions for Cal out very soon. I definitely think that this is a team that eventually could contend for a college football playoff if they play the transfer portal outright, seeing what Jaron Kiawe-Sakpalete's development process will look like over the next year or two, however long he chooses to stay in Cal. This is a team that I think can eventually get themselves into a CFP. The team that I think is going to take the biggest step backwards, though, I think it's obvious, and that's the Duke Blue Devils. Manny Diaz is going to have his hands full. But the good news is that you return both of your coordinators, Jonathan Brewer and Jonathan Patke. I think Brewer is a phenomenal offensive coordinator. I think he's a great mind. Was with Rhett Lashley for a couple seasons at SMU. And now, since he took over at Duke, I think he's been able to inherit some really good quarterbacks. You look at 24 when he got Riley Leonard. That was a consistent offense that was able to run the football effectively, that was able to balance themselves. They showed why they were a dominant team, mostly on the ground last year, not necessarily through the air. Not with a guy like, or I should say, they were able to do some good things through the air with a guy like Malik Murphy. Malik Murphy was a pretty good quarterback, 60% completion rate, almost 3,000 passing yards and 26 scores, did struggle with the turnovers. And then you get to the very next season, you bring in a guy like Darian Mensah, you bring in Cooper Bartkate from Harvard, and those two popped off. Tough start early in the year, and they go on a 4-game win streak to end the season. Darian Mensah is all of a sudden one of the better quarterbacks in college football that I think could take that next step forward. 3,900 passing yards this past year, 34 touchdowns. He's now at Miami along with his number one receiver in Cooper Bartkate. There was obviously some legal issues that occurred behind the scenes, but we don't know what all is going to happen for Duke this upcoming season. And look, it's going to be rough. Make no mistake about it. This team is going to take a big step back. And I love Manny Diaz. I think he's a phenomenal head coach. No, he is not on the he is not even close to being on the hot seat. Ken Walker-Egan, the transfer in from San Jose State, who took a big step, he took a decent step forward with the Spartans, I believe he's got 1 or 2 more years of college football yet left. I think this is his last one. But he gets a guy that is played the entire season on an ACL. And understand this. This kid is a phenomenal athlete. You pair him with a coordinator like Brewer, who's done really, really well. Both of his quarterbacks during his time had over 60% completion percentage. Walker-Egan is not going to be Darian Mensah. It's inevitable. It's not going to happen. What he does have, though, is a decent O-line for the most part. You brought in some pieces that I think could turn out really well. Jonah Burton, who comes in from Idaho State, had just 233 yards receiving on averaging over 11 yards a catch. Formerly did play some Big 12 ball, I believe with Baylor. I could be mistaken at the end of the day, but Baylor's going to be, or Duke is going to be taking a big step back. And here's why. The schedule is brutal. The roster is not the same as it was this past year. Do I see them getting to bowl eligibility? It's going to take a good bit, but there are winnable games. Boston College at home, which I do believe that they win. William and Mary, Stanford. That Tulane game is obviously 50-50, but I don't think that this is the same Tulane team that we're used to in years past. I don't know. I don't like the Will Hall hire that Tulane made, but you got to go to Illinois. You got to go to Champaign nonetheless, which Champaign is a really hard place to play. You go to Georgia Tech, North Carolina. I could see you getting that 5th win there, but it's hard to find a 6th win. Clemson at home could be one. Going to Winston-Salem to play Jake Dickert and a great offense in Wake Forest. At Miami, I don't see it. At NC State, I don't see it. And then going to Scott Stadium, I don't see it. I think this is going to be at most, at the best, a 5-7 team. At worst, maybe 3-9. I think the median, I would lean more towards 5-7. Kind of a step back for Manny Diaz and company, but I would not be surprised if they pull off some upsets here and there. Let me know what you guys think. Who's going to take a bigger step backwards or forwards in the ACC? Who are you excited to see that could be a sleeper for a college football playoff in 2026? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you soon.